I'd like to call the meeting to order. All those that can, would you please stand to say the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to thank the huge crowd tonight for showing up. We got a presentation that's going to make it worth your time. So, roll call, please.
All board members are present this evening.
Okay, I don't have any changes for the agenda, so motion to approve the agenda.
I would move to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Moved and supported. Vote, please.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I would move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Moved and supported. Vote, please.
Mrs. Chenoweth?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, the announcements and information. Highland Township offices will be closed on November 28th and 29th in observance of Thanksgiving holiday. Shop Small Business Saturday is November 30th. The Festival of Trees is December 1st to December 31st. Christmas tree lighting will be Monday, December 2nd. And Ladies' Night Out is Thursday, December 5th. So we'll move on to the first item. So first item tonight is a presentation. I guess, Chief, would you like to introduce your team here? I'll introduce Lauren and Andrew. So this is Lauren Lee and Andrew Markle. And they work for Partners, who are doing the design work for the fire stations. And we'll let you guys take over. You just tell me when you need to flip a sign.
Okay, sounds good. Hi all, as we said, I'm Lauren from Partners in Architecture. We're happy to be here today, so we're excited to present where we've kind of come so far with the design and kind of moving forward with progress. So go ahead, we can start with the Station 1 here off 59. We have a site plan.
Maybe. There we go.
We kind of went back and forth throughout the process on kind of just the right orientation for the building itself. We did decide to orient it to go parallel with 59 or Highland Road right there, so it has the best presentation as you're coming to or kind of running east and west. The way that we have it oriented right now, the apparatus bay is actually the red. So that's the pull-through apparatus bay, and the blue would be sort of the living and the public and the training room side. The way we have our in and out organized, so our ingress and egress, and I apologize, I'm kind of a pointer as I talk, so I can't really talk, but to the, to the west is our public entrance. Thanks, Chief. To the west is our public entrance. Yep. And that's where the public would actually enter into the site as well. So we actually have a slow down lane that we would have just a little bit. Yep, right off of 59, we'd have a slow down lane. And I will kind of put a caveat out there. These are architectural kind of renderings of what the design intent is, and we will have obviously civil engineers and MDOT and everybody involved with the actual design. So the length of the slowdown may not be the appropriate size, but the intent is that we would have a slowdown lane running in that direction, and then the public or anybody that coming in for training or anything like that would come into the asphalt paving area. You can see the two handicap parking that kind of is right outside the main entry. So there would be a nice, very obvious, architecturally significant entrance at the front of the building. We do have 3 flagpoles there as another indication of what this building is and represents. And then to the west a little bit more, and actually the bump out there is the training room. So there's additional parking to the west. and we would be able to have any additional, I think, other stations or just the entire station coming into that very large training room. After that, kind of going to the other side, we tried to separate that public versus the emergency vehicle use for the site. So the circulation around the site is limited to really the firefighters and any of the personnel that would be coming to train there or to use the site as the such. So the entry would be kind of for everybody there to the west, but really once you get beyond the parking and the asphalt, that would be for authorized personnel only. So you get right towards the top of that asphalt paving there would kind of be,
Right there.
yeah, so you wouldn't be able to go through that area, even though the site circulation for the user group, we'd want them to maintain full site circulation. So as you can see, we do have a pull-through bay. So you'd pull in from the west, you'd circle around the back of the building, and you could pull forward into the apparatus bay. Yep. And then once there's an emergency, you could go out the front of the building, through the exit, or, out the curb cut, right out into 59, and then whether you're going east or west, you would be able to go direct. So we're really trying to keep an eye on response times and making sure that we have that direct access. So we're working with MDOT and the engineers and all that on making an authorized vehicle only crossover there. So the emergency vehicles could head east as quickly as possible. A couple of other little things that we have going on the site. There is a sign that we're looking to put towards the front, sorry. That will help indicate, what the building is and where you enter into the site.
Making everybody sick here.
Okay, then motion sickness.
Sorry, I'm all over the place. And we do have the continuation of the sidewalk that is existing, so that is a nice, we got our frontage there with the green space, and then we have our sidewalk that's gonna be tied into the existing, and then it's kind of our parking lot in our building. Other things to the rear of the building, that's where we have the space that we need for, we have our generator back there, and then we have this, in that green space, located as, as close to the building, for efficiency as possible, but also trying to locate it where it's not gonna be disruptive to the use of the building. And then back out onto what will look like just a nice big open field, is a lot of what we need for our site support. We have our septic field, we have reserve ponds, we have our septic tank that's gonna be there. And then for our site detention, our water detention, I have a very nice large rectangle indicating what we're anticipating to be the retention pond area for all the site water runoff. So that is kind of the layout of the site. Is there any questions on the site before?
You don't
Anything
think
that I
there's
might
a
have
need,
missed?
right? You don't think there's a need for a light on that turnaround?
No, studies have shown that the lights, all they do is, people get used to seeing them flash.
Okay.
So even when it does change colors, they drive right through it anyways.
Right.
One question,
Sure.
on the entrance moving from east to west, that corner, is that gonna be less sharp as it is right now? I mean, the corner coming
Coming
off
through
of
here?
Well, that's a fairly wide drive, that's
I know, but it's still.
two vehicles wide.
We're gonna-
Gentle sweep is what.
Yeah, it's funny, I just got called out this week from my civil engineer and was like, we're gonna have to turn that entry to be completely perpendicular to 59, right? And I was like, okay, yes, we will. So there's a little bit of kind of relief that we will build into the design to taper that out a little bit more. I think we have a tight turn
Yeah,
radius, so we would kind of sweep it out a little
Sweep
bit
it
more.
out. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Are those parking spaces to scale?
Yes.
So there's only 22 parking spaces for, that's not even enough for all the people to come into training.
You have also back along here and along
Yeah.
the sides too, if we're
Well,
having
it
a
doesn't
large
show
scale
that.
training. There's not parking spaces identified, it's just available for parking of apparatus and other equipment.
Yeah. So there's a designated parking lot for public use, and then when they have their, training days and they have their regular working days, they actually probably wouldn't park in those spaces. They would actually park towards the rear of the building where they would probably enter in from like a staff-only entrance.
So there'll be space designated and shown later.
We can show them.
Okay.
I guess at this point, we have not, shown them at the rear, but, I mean, that's always something that we can add on, just to
Okay.
make sure they're designated
I
areas.
would be cautious of painting parking spaces into a space that you don't want people parking as a general rule, because then you've just created a hazard.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, if they're the firefighters, they should know through common sense that they can use those spaces to park.
So
So,
there's adequate parking for staff in the residential.
well, you've got, these spaces are what, 9 feet wide?
yes, by 20,
So you've
typically
probably
10 by
got-
20 is the way we lay it out.
Between 36 and 40 feet of width in that part with a little minimum right there of concrete. So, there's a lot of cars that could park right along that edge easily and not impede the flow of trucks and things like that.
And plus, there's gonna be a crushed gravel training area in the back that you'll have plenty of room to park additional vehicles.
Thank you.
There'll be ample parking in the property.
And then the floor plan, as we've moved through that, so taking the space of the building, this is oriented, the site plan is oriented, so we have the apparatus bay on the right-hand side, and the living quarters on the right-hand side. Yep, yep. As like a big, blue to red on the site plan. Breaking it down even further, we have additional colors kind of indicating like office space and admin area, so that's the yellow. So at the very bottom of the page, there's a little bit of a jut out. That is our front entry vestibule. You would walk into a vestibule, yep, and then enter into, and there's actually a window there where you could interact with someone at the front desk if there's like a quick conversation with the public that could happen, and they wouldn't even need to enter into the full building if they're out there for a long-term meeting or part of the training room or anything like that. They would just kind of do their business at that exchange counter and then be able to leave again if they're there for a quick question or a permit, whatever.
Secured entrance?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep, and then once you go beyond the second double doors, that's gonna be the open lobby, that we're showing there. It's not an enormous lobby, but it's enough where people could come out, congregate, go to the restroom, circulate. We really didn't want, this big old grand, lobby. We wanted to try to keep it compact as possible. As you can see to the left-hand side is the training room with all the training tables kind of shown as they would be set up for firemen's training. With the visual at the top of the room. So that would be where the screen would be, that's actually facing north. The way that our roof lines are kind of working out, we actually have a sloped ceiling in there, which is a nice visual on the front of the building, and then it's a nice ample volume space for the use in there.
That stadium seating, is that flexible?
It's not stadium in the sense that it's tiered, it's just simply tables, and they are typically, and really it's gonna be up to whatever chief ends up purchasing,
Modular.
but typically they're modular and they're mobile,
Okay,
yep,
thank you.
and foldable. Outside the lobby, as I said, we have two public restrooms, there's a designated men's and women's, but they are a single occupant use restroom, with a secured entry off to the left of the lobby. From there, if you are coming in for a meeting with chief or maybe the marshal or something like that, you would then come into the hallway and there would be the admin desk to the bottom. Yep, the chief's office would be next along the exterior perimeter. And then we have the watch desk. Now that's where like the radio room and a lot of their report writing happens, and they need to be able to see who's coming and going off the front of the building and what's going on in the apparatus room. So that is a strategically located room to be able to see exactly what's going on throughout the station. To the other side of the corridor, we have the assistant chief's office and then the marshal office. Each one of those offices
Assistant
has
chief,
a...
is that it right there? Oh, bathroom.
We're gonna shove the marshal in there.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Right there.
And then typically those desks are gonna be whatever. We're just showing a space saver desk for now, but we'll work out those details as we proceed. But each one of those rooms does have a closet. That was something that, as far as their uniform and jackets and things that they have and they use, and that we wanted to build in. Outside and down and around the gray corridor, there is what we're calling, what do we call that, material room?
Multifunction.
Multifunction. So that is an open like office use space. So it's gonna have, their copy machine, some countertops, some storage for their paperwork. It also is on the opposite side gonna be their coffee station. So that's why we're calling it multi-use. So it's gonna kind of form or, complete the office use, in that one space. On the opposite side of the corridor, next to the apparatus bay, is the captain's office. This would be where they have some individual meetings, they have a lot of filing that happens in here, and it's a nice, separated kind of conference area, where they could have. There is a door right there that's separating the yellow from the blue. That's another secure checkpoint, and that would take you to the living space. So we have kind of the admin area, and then you're going back into the living space. So this is where, the dorms are located, so the 24-hour staff members would each have a dorm at the time. Those little, squares with the rectangles coming off of them, those are indicating pass-through lockers. The system on that is that if someone is in the dorm and it's shift change, someone else could access their own lockers from the hallway side. So it's just a flexible use space during that shift changeover. And then at the end of the hall, we have the restrooms, a nice ample size with a countertop so that, getting, they brush their teeth or whatever they're doing in there, they have a place to put their totes. And then there's a nice ample shower in there with another storage closet. Going back out of that corridor, we're going down and around into the day room, or up and around, I should say. Into the day room. Now this day room is kind of where it all happens all the time. This will be probably one of the most used spaces other than maybe the watch room and the apparatus bay. In here we have the kitchen, so all their meals will be prepped in here. We got ample amount of storage. We've got refrigerators. We've got a high-low countertop for social cooking and communal, community development between the staff is kind of, thank you, is a lot of what happens around the cooking area and in the dining table. So that dining table's in the middle, and then on the far end of the room is going to be the television with some comfortable seating there. After that, the double doors and the nice big view would go out towards the rear, and there would be a little bit of a patio out there. So the grill would probably be out there for cooking the food there. So from the living space, if we go back out, we're actually going to get into more of the functional uses. Each one of the red highlights are what we call the hot zone. That's basically the transfer point from the living or the office side into the apparatus bay. That's that fast-moving traffic. It's constantly kept clear and it's always wide. That's going to be where, once they get a call, they're going to be moving quickly through those spaces. That's a connection point. So into, let's see, what do we have there? Another restroom. We do have an electrical closet, nothing fun. And then the PPE room is at the top. So the PPE room is where they have a lot of their equipment. If there's an on-call staff coming, they'd come in through the exterior door, park in the rear, come in through the exterior door for the PPE room, grab their gear, and then head to the apparatus bay. So that's also a very strategically located room to help with response times to the apparatus bay.
And the idea in the separation is because you want to keep contaminated clothing and air and so on and so forth separated from the
yes, and
rest of
sunlight.
it.
Sunlight is very damaging to equipment. You have to replace equipment a lot faster if you don't put it outside the sun. So it has been kept in the apparatus bays. You see a lot of older stations that are hanging them along the apparatus bay walls. However, those doors are open and closed all the time and getting direct sun, indirect sun. So by putting that into its own separate room, we're actually protecting and having the suits be available longer.
What's the typical size of the width of the hallway?
We have 6 feet
6 feet? Okay.
running through there.
All right,
Yep.
that's good, thanks.
You can see that there's a staircase that's actually leading up to the mezzanine. Yep, exactly. So on the, let's see, what am I trying to say? On the left side of the apparatus bay is where we're going to have a mezzanine, and there will not be a mezzanine on the right-hand side.
So it sits on top of this core right here,
Exactly.
and that's this element on the right.
When the stairway comes down, is that a door at the landing there?
It's open, isn't it?
There's windows connecting the captain's room to the apparatus bay, but no doors there.
Okay,
The door would be the red that you can see is
okay,
further away.
thank you.
The mezzanine, just to touch on that real quick, has some functional aspects to it. We have the IT closet up there, we've got the mechanical space up there, another storage room, there's training space. So the idea is to have the availability to train year-round. So we're building that into a lot of our stations nowadays where we are doing ladder throws on the interior of the building now. So that's a part of their routine training. But now instead of having to do it on the outside of the building in the middle of winter, we can continue to train on the inside of the building. Even though training on the outside is always good because you have different weather conditions, it's nice to be able to do it all year round and have that opportunity to do it inside. So the white space within the mezzanine, which is where the cursor is really meant to be just an open space where people, the officers or in their gear can be running up and down those stairs, practicing that, climbing over railings, climbing up ladders, rolling into those spaces, and really trying to do what they can to train using that flexible space. There's a ton of different training pieces that can be put together in those spaces, whether they're walls or they do a lot of built testing. So just make them out of 2x4s and crawl through them, crawl under them, train with them. So that idea is to have it completely open.
Is that stairway, is that a wall or a rail with the stairway?
Open rail.
Sorry?
Open rail.
Open rail?
Yeah. The blue space at the top is a fitness area, so that's not a large space, but just a space where they'll have a few pieces of equipment and be able to continue with their physical training. Let's see, back down in the apparatus bay, we do have 4 pull-through bays. We're talking about doing overhead doors there. We have a couple of columns in the middle, and we're actually going to use those as a training opportunity with some standpipes. So another opportunity to be able to train inside the apparatus bay. On the far right side, that's kind of our utilitarian space. It's a lot of the support space that we need, and I can't see, I have to read. Starting from the bottom of the page, we have outdoor storage. Yep. So the outdoor storage is right there, so it's lawnmowers and whatever else they might need to maintain the site. The next room is the workroom and equipment, and Chief, you might be able to speak to better the equipment in there, but there's always a ton of equipment.
It's just where we do repairs on hydrant pumps or any of the equipment that we have, chainsaw blades, whatever we're doing. It'll be a specific area for that. Currently, we don't have any workspace for it. It's done on the picnic table out in the weather, or we bring the picnic table inside the building whenever we can. But with 2 ambulances, Star EMS, 2 engines and a tanker at Station 1 currently, we can't put anything in the building.
The next room is the compressor room. So there's a large Scba, which is their air fill tanks. It's a fairly large, loud equipment. So we try to put that in a room, a sound barrier room in and of itself. And then there's also another piece of equipment in there that would then run the air hoses in the overhead lines for inside the apparatus bay. The next one is Scba Maintenance. So this is actually a clean room. So it has to be designated itself, where they have lots of countertops. Again, they're doing repairs on a lot of their intricate pieces of all of the respirator equipment. Did I say that right, Chief?
Yep.
Okay, good. Hose and then the PPE dryer. So this is like their decon, well, it's outside the decon. It's really where they take their uniforms, their fireman uniforms, and they actually can turn on, yeah, thank you, and can clean it in this room. So this has a large extractor, and then where they're actually gonna have like a washer dryer for smaller equipment as well. After that, we have a restroom and then a decon area. So the decon area is basically when they come back from a call, they need an opportunity to do a wash off from the site. It has a lot of decontaminants that need to come off their gear, and they need a place to clean it. Before they were doing a lot of cleaning right outside the building, and it's much better to try to contain that and clean it. So we're creating these rooms to better, now that we better understand the hazards that are coming from those fires and all the contaminants.
It's not only the fire side of it, but it's also the bloodborne pathogen side of it, bloods, any bodily fluids guys are contaminated on during EMS scenes. The idea is you come in the back door, you're not contaminating your fire station, you're contaminating a small room. It'll be a complete wash down of the room, make it easier to clean up.
And I kind of read it backwards, but really the idea is that they're coming back from the call to the top of the page, which would be the rear of the site, and they're progressing from the top down through the bottom. So they start with decon and then they get cleaner as they go. And then the idea would be that the dirty equipment stays on the right-hand side and the clean PPE turnout gear goes to the left-hand side. So it's a very strategic process of how we're supposed to help them maintain their equipment and their process. So now on to the pretty pictures. So this is kind of how the whole building has come together. We really have come a long way from where we started about a year ago. But really what we wanted to do is really look at Highland and try to figure out and pull from other buildings in the area. Obviously the library was a very big influence to how the development of this building came around. We were very insistent upon having a sloped roof. One, because flat roofs can be, a short term, they have problems and water issues and that kind of stuff. So the sloped roof was one for aesthetics and two for function, and maybe not in that order. And then pulling the aesthetics from the library kind of has that, timber frame architecture, maybe not explicitly, but it has characteristics of it. So we have some lintels above the windows that are meant to look like timber beams. Obviously we have the timber beam at the gable end of the apparatus bay, and then we have a couple more beams that are running across those stone pillars at the front of that elevation. And actually, just, you can't quite see it, but that front elevation where we have it peaked steps out about 8, 12 inches, something like that. So it's actually predominant and sits out front of the other portion. So it's a nice, breaks up that front facade. It's a nice detail, kind of gave it a good character. We took that stone from the apparatus bay and ran it around the bottom of the skirting, along the bottom of the entire building. And then we brought it up to that architectural significant entrance. We went back and forth on this entrance many times. I think we had a timber beam in there at one point, and in the end, we really liked the way that this opened up because we want to put a sign on the inside of the building and have it light through that front entrance. So ultimately, there would be another sort of beacon sign indicating that this is the fire station.
Wall surface decorative block?
On the inside of the building, it would just be gypboard.
Outside.
Oh, outside of the building, the vertical is like a vertical board and bat siding.
Like the library.
Yes.
On that section.
House of maintenance.
And the apparatus bay is black.
Yes.
It's a hardy board style material, kind of, not like the old days where depending on when you get it out the site, it'll be impregnated all the way through.
Cement.
Minimum maintenance,
Yes.
minimum upkeep on it.
All right, thank you.
Yes. Yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention there's a difference between the apparatus bay and the rest of the building.
Okay.
The apparatus bay is a 12-inch thick block wall,
Okay.
yeah, with the stone being a decorative addition.
Okay.
The roof is, like I said, a slope. It's a 412 pitch with asphalt shingle roof. And then we do have a cupola. The cupola is going to serve not only architecturally and aesthetically, but it actually opens up and allows for airflow. So the heat will rise to the top, and then there's vents that will actually allow that heat to escape. So it's actually part of a good way of, an energy efficient way of cooling that space or letting the hot air out. It's not really cooling it, it's just letting the hot air out. And then letting the sunlight in.
You got some indirect light.
Yes. Let's see. And obviously the beautiful red doors. We had to make it a predominant statement for the apparatus. A couple of other angles just to show side view. You can see it a little bit, actually, do we have another video? Oh, yeah.
This is
So-
the part you were talking about sticking out, it kinda has a prow look to it. I think that's
Yes.
what you'd call it, a prow.
Yes, that's a little bit of a head nod to the old barn
Barns.
constructions, yes.
And it's the same for the entranceway.
Yes. Yep. And the underside of that is a light color. It's really, it looks like wood. And that's what we want it to look like, that light kind of natural wood. But it's actually an aluminum perforated soffit material that I've used on other buildings, and it looks really nice. That way it serves its function, it's long lasting, but it also looks good too.
Is there a gutter facade on it, gutters?
Yes. Yep. I don't think I've shown any downspouts, but there will be gutters and downspouts. Yep. And then you can kind of see, it's actually directly right at the fire, yes, that's the cutoff point for the training room. So you can kind of see that our training room, because it projects from the building, has a single slope to it. And actually the next image will show a better look on how that came together for us.
But maybe we don't have that image.
Do you have it there?
No.
Well, I can pass it around. So the single slope training room, and you can kind of see it back there, it has windows on the north side, so you actually get really nice natural light. Basically, if we had tried to do something different than that, the front facade would really change.
What it is it's this wall right here,
Yes.
goes 2 stories.
Yeah.
I think the cues with the library are very nice. The cupola, actually, if people really looked at the library, they'd realize there's a very similar feature on the library with celestial lighting. It drives the people inside nuts because the light at the equinox comes in and burns their eyeballs out, but it's one of those things. It's not a library, so we're not gonna have that problem.
Right,
so.
right. And we do, it's really nicely oriented, this building, it really is. The north side being the ample side, and a lot of where we're having our living spaces.
We're gonna use that side door a lot.
Sorry?
Oh, the side.
Yeah.
This side door is anytime that like currently a lot of the associations have meetings inside this room. It's a public building, our intention is to open it up to the public if you want to have events here. This would be a separate access for them to make entry into, so it doesn't disturb the rest of the operation.
Well, the question was frequency. I mean, should we have a vestibule so that when you open it up, all this cold air doesn't rush in? Is there, just making it.
I will say that
There's no money
we've
for
done
it.
everything we can.
No, I'm just.
And I'm gonna have a little statement at the end of our presentation.
No, and I honestly, I think that for the most part, that door started off being there because it's my second emergency egress.
Okay.
I mean, that's where it started.
Oh,
After that, it was kind of like, oh, look, we have some parking spots there, and oh, look, it's kind of a convenience and kind of nice. But really, I think that because of the parking arrangement, they're probably going to be parking around back, coming in through the PPE, and coming in and going to their locker, and then coming to training. So it'll be mostly for emergency exits.
Yeah, I think if you look at the access in the building, to get from this door through, you've got to go back out and all the way around and up like this, where they've already got a door here, so.
If it was gonna be frequently, then we're
Right,
gonna get
right.
blasted cold air coming in.
Right, and we lose a lot of that
Maybe they have
efficiency.
air conditioning, whatever, so that's why sometimes they're gonna have outside.
Magic stuff.
Yeah, that would, and it's really, we really don't want to use it frequently, and we really don't want it to be marked as the main entrance, because we want like the public, if there's going to be a train, or, you know, a public meeting or something, to come in through the front.
Thank you.
Station 2. I kind of explained a lot of kind of how the site works, so I won't go so far in depth. I'll just give the kind of outline of Station 2. We are oriented, front of the building is to the north again, right along Wardlow. We directed the apparatus bay directly across from the curb cut for the subdivision across the street. That was expressed early on that that would be helpful for any lights that are coming on in the middle of the day. It's not going directly into any neighbors. So we positioned the building so that that would happen, and I think we ended up actually flipping the building at one point in order to make that happen. But again, the red is the apparatus bay, the blue is the living side. This one does not have a training space, so we anticipate this would be a lot less used by the public in the sense of coming for long-term. This would be more of like a stop to ask questions or permits or something like that. So there is a main entry, but we don't have the same sort of approach once we get to the floor plan. From here, we still separated the public from the private, so to speak, I guess. But the asphalt paving would be to the right-hand side in the darker gray, and that would be where the public parking happens. This site is unique in the sense that it slopes quite significantly to the south. So we're actually going to use that to our advantage and put some storage underneath the building. In order to access that storage, we do have a small, the lightest color gray is a sloped drive with some crushed limestone back there to access that storage area, and then also we're putting the generator there, so it's actually a very perfect place for the generator to be down low and out of the way, no visual from the day room or anything like that. The other side of the apparatus bay is still a pull through, so you pull in from Wardlow and you go around the rear of the building. This one is a bit tighter. We're trying to keep it tight and be conscious of cost for how that will slope down towards the rear, but we have gone through some exercises to make sure that that would be still ample enough. So that would be concrete paving on that side to hold up to the apparatus bay, or the apparatus's weight and circulation. And then we've added 10 parking spots along that side for the PPE staff, and that, or I'm sorry, the on-call and the staff that'll be at this station. Again, we have what we need for septic reserve and site retention. So maybe to the floor plan?
There was
Any
some
questions
question with the residents that are back over in here. They were concerned about what was gonna happen to this land, and what happens is this piece of property belongs, this little cutout right here belongs to the school system. Then there's a 60-foot, I think it's 60 foot, or a county right-of-way, which is actually is a old platted road that nobody uses. And so there's nobody can touch that without the county saying anything. So what we've done is we've tried to address the screening of, they were concerned that we'd be in there chopping all the trees down, and they'd have a visual that would be less than they really cared for. And so I think we've addressed that pretty well with by keeping things on the opposite side.
Yes, we're working with the civil engineers to put everything as far away as possible, and then to figure out with them, you know, we need some sort of efficiency with what these, you know, the site detention and that kind of thing, and trees don't help with the efficiency of detaining water, ironically. So there will be some clearing, but we will have that to the west side of the site, and then we will only, you know, do what's necessary in order to have a septic field in reserve. So again, these yellow rectangles are a placeholder, and we will be engineering to only exactly what we need. So things could get smaller, tighter, more compacted. There are space requirements between septic and, you know, fields and buildings and retention and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So we have to respect those requirements, but we will do everything we can to keep things to the west. So the site plan, or the floor plan, I'm sorry, very similar in layout as far as the offices are in yellow and they are to the top of the page this time. The entryway is actually at an angle, so there's two little dots, those are representing columns that would kind of architecturally, you know, present the entrance. And then we have a small or smaller vestibule and lobby. So this one we actually don't have a true vestibule. in the sense that it's a, 5x5 when you first walk in. However, like I said, we anticipate that this would be a less frequented area, and so the vestibule and the lobby itself would actually be not really used that often. We do have a janitor's closet and then a restroom just on the other side of that vestibule and lobby, with a captain's office and a watch desk that make up the majority of that admin area. From there, we have the blue space. We have 4 dorms instead of 6 in this one, with at the end of the hall with a laundry room and a storage room. The restrooms this time are actually between the apparatus bay and the living quarters. This time, like I said, we do not have a mezzanine over here, and a lot of the utilitarian spaces are going to be on the west side or on the left-hand side, rather than in between the living and the apparatus bay, with the exception of the lower rectangle, orange rectangle, that they would be the equipment storage. So everything in here, it's a little bit less as far as what's needed over here, with the equipment, with the amount of the apparatuses that'll be here. There's only 3 bays that are, so we tried to keep everything appropriately sized for the use of the station. And then apparatus bay, as I mentioned, again with the columns in the middle, and then on the far side we have another decon room towards the bottom. So again, you would approach from dirty, shower off, go to the restroom, and then you'd go straight into the laundry room. So you could clean off the equipment. You have a countertop and a utility sink in there for any mask cleaning, helmets, that kind of thing, boots. And then you move into the washer and dryer, which are just the rectangles there. We have a single door, and if you remember from the site plan, the parking spots were just on the other side. So by putting the parking lot where we put it, you have direct access, again, thinking about response times, directly into the building and directly into the Ppe room, to go through the Ppe room to get their turnout gear and out to the apparatus bay. So again, everything trying to be strategic with the placement. And then in the basement, which is the plan, on the far side, it's going to be we have storage, but then we do have a mechanical and electrical room with a chase. So it's pretty open down there. And like I said, we have access. We do have a deck that's coming off the day room. I don't think I touched on the day room, I'm sorry. Day room is the blue on the bottom corner. Again, we're the kitchen and the dining and the lounge area.
So the space off to the left is the basement,
Yeah.
Yes.
and the stairway is,
And the basement's only gonna cover this area here, up to the restroom, so we have access to all the plumbing.
okay.
But the biggest benefit to us, every station we visited over the past year and a half was storage.
Yeah.
You never have enough room for storage.
I understand, I didn't
This
see
was
that, I didn't see access. That's all.
Great opportunity. to
We
provide this.
we did have access at one point, and through, kind of sizing things down and looking at cost and that kind of stuff, he said, we really just need access to it. We don't need access from the living quarters, so we actually took the internal stair out, and we just have access from the exterior. What we did add was, if you drive down the side, you can access it, but then from the apparatus bay side, you will have a stair that goes from the high side to the low side, so that there's, quick connection for the guys that are moving through there. Any other questions about this floor plan? This building, again, we want to make a cohesive building look for the fire stations, and then with the library as well. So you'll see a lot of the same elements in a slightly different configuration. We have 3 instead of 4 here, so our gable end became a little bit smaller with the accent of the timber framing. Smaller cupola, just again in proportion to the rest of the building, but still with the timber beam against the central, or above the central apparatus bay door, and above the windows, kind of leading across, lightening and brightening it up. You'll also see the peaks. We mentioned the peaks. So the gable end at the top of the apparatus bay is slightly peaked, and then same with the entry, which you can kind of see at this angle, because that front entry is at like a 45. Again, same type of construction, We're using the 12-inch CMU for the apparatus bay. We're using cold form metal with outboard rigid insulation and the cementitious board and bat. Next angle, yep, shows a good angle of that front entry. So again, with the timber, bringing it into this area, the 2-story entry with the light above, the transom light above the entry as we had in station number 1, didn't really work with the roof lines that are here. So it was an opportunity to introduce the timber back in again to this design. And our flagpoles, of course.
Type of roof?
Asphalt shingles.
They wanted metal.
Longevity, right?
Yes, I mean, with the metal roofs, we kind of started with that as our recommendation just because we know that that is kind of the long term of the building. However, asphalt shingles, warranties are really good nowadays and you do get longer times. So it's really gonna be about making sure that these guys install it properly and we maintain all the warranties all the way through construction and that kind of stuff. So we anticipate doing all of that and having we have a good GC with us.
You can always put it on later. I bet you won't.
Did you see those
That
items?
is.
That's all I've got. I'm here for any questions. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And we're excited to keep it going.
Thank you, Lauren.
I just want to throw a couple caveats in there. Thanks, Lauren. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, David, for everything you guys have done. Rick, can you get both front views of the fire stations? To Eugene and Roscoe, I
Do what?
included both front views, elevations of them too.
Yeah, I can't remember how to do it.
Eugene and Roscoe, I tried to include you guys. You are the backbone of the community, the guts of the community. You have a lot of history and knowledge of the history. The information you provided us, we shared with Lauren. I think she's done a great job.
I can't do them both side by side.
Dang it.
You didn't give me
I
enough
think she's
data.
done a great job incorporating all that stuff into there, and I just want to thank you guys so much. To the board, this wouldn't have been possible without your help and without you allowing us to do this. One of our members from the committee is in the back, Lieutenant Young. For the past 18 months, we've been researching, we've been looking, we've been trying to come up with what's going to best suit this community for the next 50 years. We identified the problem that our buildings needed repair. Do we put bad money into good, or do we continue on with the new process? We went to a half dozen departments, found out what worked, found out what didn't work, and then planned for the future. Right now, we're a combination department. We have 2 people on duty, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. 50 years ago, when these buildings were built, we had nobody on duty. We had a true volunteer department. What's going to happen 50 years from now? We've talked about different caveats or things that could come about over the next few years. We just want to make sure that we're not half-shotting this. We're making sure we're preparing or providing a building or facilities that will suit the community for the next 50 years. And I think Partners have done a great job putting that all together for us. So thank you. Thank you,
50
everybody.
years, hopefully
50
not,
years.
not Uber firefighters.
Oh, well. Yeah. I am gonna cheat. If I can figure out a way to cheat.
So, Eugene would like to make a statement. If you want to do that now, would be a good
If you
time.
don't mind, I'll put my Historical Society hat on here because I wanted to compliment both the chief and Partners in Architecture for reaching out to the Historical Society very early on to get some input and some thoughts on the look of these. There was a clear commitment on both of their parts to try to come up with a style that says Highland. And so they not only poured over all the historical photographs that we have on our website, we were also, Mr. Smith and I, invited to a couple meetings early on where we were showing some initial renderings and had some very good give and take. And speaking for myself, although I think Roscoe would agree, I am very pleased with the look of this. And let me just give you a few quick examples of how they've been guided by Highland's historic architecture. The use of stone. If you've toured any of the old houses here in town, or the foundations of the old Methodist Church, the Congregational Church, all of our buildings were predominantly stone foundations with wood frame uppers, and they've carried that through with their use of stone. The vertical board and batten, you find it on the depot, you find it on our barns, you find it on some of the early industrial buildings we had here in town. The cupola, or as I call it, a clerestory, across the ridge of the roofs. If you look at the old engravings of both the Vinegar Works and the Pickle Works, those had very similar roofs for very much the same reason. It provided both light and ventilation. It also recalls some of the smaller cupolas that you would find on the grain elevators both at Clyde and here in Highland Station. Timber framing and the projecting roof lines, of course, pay homage to our barns. And I especially like the color. Years ago there used to be what was called Ppe Marquette gray. It was a color that the railroad used for many of its rural depots. Ross will remember, I think, this depot here in town had that same sort of gray color, as did the elevator here in town. So they have done an excellent job, I think, in capturing what I like to call the Highland look. We're not Milford, we're not a more urban type that has the brick and flat roofs and so forth. This is a rural community, and they've done a nice job of bringing those elements together. And the fact that it does also draw from the library is exciting, because I think what you've developed now is a distinctive, coherent municipal style that can be carried forward into other projects down the road, and clearly identify Highland as having a coherent architectural mix. So my compliments to all of them for that.
Thank you, Gene. Thanks, Roscoe, for input on it as well.
I remember when old number one first drove into town, and people were lined up on the sides of the streets watching it come in, waiting and waiting, and the guy, Claude Hale, would call from New Hudson, then he'd call from Milford saying when he was gonna get here, and all standing on the corner. And I'm always struck by it, because we thought, he talked about the technology, and 50 years from now, we were all struck by how up-to-date things were in Highland. Now we had a fire truck, and before we just had those big old 2 soda tanks on wagon wheels and stuff, and now we had our own fire truck. And I was struck every year when we have the parade, and out in front of the fire hall, here's old number one, and here's Big Red, and it looks like a Tonka toy just beside the rescue wagon, never mind the big tank truck. And it struck me that this, like old number one and Big Red, this is something that will still work in 50 years. And I hope I'm around to tell you about it. So.
Well, the character of the roof lines symbolize strength.
Did you do your math?
I'm sorry?
The roof lines symbolize strength, not only the balance of everything.
Yes, these are extremely well balanced. They have just the right bulk,
Right.
if you will. That roof line.
Unlike the front on Myers Bogey Lake Road.
Exactly. Well, and that's again a very, you tell people, well, we'd like something that has a historic feel, and the thing you have to be wary of is what I'm going to call slavish imitation,
Right.
that ends up looking cutesy or Disneyfied, and obviously says fake. I mean, these are buildings of this time,
Right.
but they're drawing all the elements from the last 150 years, and I think it's nicely done.
We walked into this project with 4 objectives.
First objective was to make buildings that were functional for 50 years. Second objectives were to make buildings that were suitable and aesthetically pleasing for our community. You guys voted for it. We wanted to provide it for you. Third was the training facility had to be large enough to host large events or complex training events. And then the fourth thing, which we really didn't talk about this during the process, is feasible. We're going from a 5,000 or
6,000,
square
it's
foot
about 6,000.
building it for Station 1. Utility bills every month are $900. That's outrageous for that small of a building. We're going to a 14,000 square foot building. Both buildings are going to be designed with a geothermal heating system so that this won't have as big of a negative impact. When Milford built their stations, they saw their utility bills go up 3 times what they were experiencing before. We considered all that stuff in there. This is I applaud you guys. You guys have done everything that I've asked, even though I was squeezing every second of the way. They've provided us buildings that are going to be great for our community for the next 50 years and affordable for our community for the next 50 years.
If Eugene and Ross were both happy, that's a bonus.
We had a great meeting, we had a great
Oh, I know.
conversation,
We
it was
did,
excellent.
and you know, there were a few things that had to get cut because of either feasibility or cost, and that's understandable. But this result is still very impressive.
What is the
I
cost?
think the building says Highland.
Yeah.
Right.
What is the cost gonna be? Is that any projected cost yet?
See, it does. Highland. This is right on there.
We've approved it. They voted on the approval of a bond up to $8.5 million
For one building or
for 2 buildings. Now that also, with the $1 million capital improvement budget, that covers building construction as well as vehicle replacement, large-scale capital equipment. A couple years ago, we bought a whole set of Hurst hydraulic extrication tools that are now on engine 11. That has that in mind, that we'll still be able to purchase large-scale projects like that. Lieutenant Russell, what do we pay for the whole kit for the Hurst? I want to say it was like 42,000, 38,000, somewhere in that ballpark.
I think you're right.
Pretty substantial.
I think it was 43, something close to there.
So normally in a regular, I squeeze our operating budget as much as I can squeeze it. To buy some equipment like that to update our current equipment, I really don't have that available. Now with the capital improvement budget, we do have that. We are planning for it for the future.
That's quite a glow you have going there, Warren.
Great.
You
This is a
should.
great project. We're having so much fun.
That is one of those things where
And
you,
by the way, we have to give Andrew a ton of credit because this is all him. We put our heads together, but
Andrew,
we made it
good
all
job.
happen. So
Great job.
very good job. Really appreciate it, and
Fun to
I
work
know
with
there's a
you.
lot more to do.
you guys too.
And it's good that you have the support to move forward too. So that's, I think, a lot of value. So thank you very much.
Good job.
Thank you.
So on that note, okay, we're gonna move on. If anybody would like to exit at this time, feel free to do so. And thank you, planning commissioners, for showing up tonight. Scott, when you get a chance, we'll talk about something.
Yeah,
All
absolutely.
right, good.
Mr. Hamel?
Yes.
There's a question in the audience. Young lady, you have a question?
Did you,
Oh, I actually wanted to ask about sustainability with this project and if you guys are going for any type of food certification.
No lead at this time. However, with the geothermal, we're looking at grants and stuff like that to help us out with some of the payment side of things. With the sustainability with that system alone is going to spread through the entire building. We have, thought about as far as the orientation, I talked about daylighting and that kind of thing. We are always thinking about sustainability as we're designing and the way we orient our windows and how we put our placement of things. But as far as going for a stamp or a seal, Not really. It's a very expensive process to go through that kind of
I'm lead
certification.
certified, so that's why I'm
Yeah,
asking.
yeah.
Some of the
Yeah,
things
we've
that you
got
guys are
people.
talking
You
about
can
with
ask
geothermal, I know longevity.
Yeah.
Geothermal is not necessarily, you get 15, maybe 20 years from geothermal, so that's why I was asking about, because I don't know if that's necessarily the best option for this, so.
Yeah, I mean, we've actually gotten a lot of good feedback on implementing this, and like 3D heat, especially in the upper attic, just because 3D heat starts from the floor, it actually keeps the couches around it rather than just going out with the air and then pushing air down with the heat, you know, all that. So we've actually gotten really positive feedback on implementing that into this type of situation.
I thought you had a question
Okay,
before.
we're gonna
Yeah,
have to,
sorry.
we gotta
Yeah,
hit the
yeah.
road on this
I
one.
can talk to you separately too.
Sure.
All right, thank you very much, appreciate it. All right, next item, number 8, public comment. Dennis?
Dennis Raymond, 6039 Fish Lake Road. I'm gonna refer to learn how to disagree and still be civil. Well, you know as well as I do, it started out that way. But then, you know, you guys, you, Tammy, and Brian called me crazy, unstable, or shoot up the place. So anyways, and beyond that, Sean went out, did his checking and whatever, and like you said before in one of your court records, which I can bring next meeting, that once the township quits watching him, he's gonna start up. I sent you an email today, and another company brings in this junk car, drops it off, he brings in his truck, hooks it back up, and puts it in his garage. I seen that. No sooner than Sean, 3 or 4 days after, I sent him another email. He drove right by my wife and I, coming out with another junk car, okay? I'm tired of this, because this is your file, not mine. This is the township's file on him, 20 years, and the stuff still is going on. I'm just gonna keep coming and coming and coming. This month, next month, the following year, the following year, and the following year. I am really getting fed up. I deserve to live here after 30 years and be in a nice neighborhood without any aggravation and whatever. I don't know what your problem is, but it can't get done. This guy needs to go to a circuit court rather than district court, because the district court just goes like this. He's been in violation of court orders 4 or 5 times, of which I have. You asked me last time if I would sign the affidavit. I did. I even said it today I would sign an affidavit. Haven't heard anything. I did refuse before not to sign it. Now I'm willing to sign it. All I'm saying is I'm getting really fed up with this crap, and it's going to get nastier between you and me, okay? Because I'm tired of waiting, okay, 20 years of putting up with this aggravation from this guy. Do something, okay? I don't care what you do. Get him to stop permanently. He probably makes, I don't have the figures handy, about $100,000 a year, and I can verify that. You would rather let him stay there, just pay property taxes, instead of having him move to a regular business like the other people in this township do and pay a business tax. So you're letting him get away, and you could be collecting taxes on that. How would you like if I take my 3.5 acres, okay, clear it, go to the planning commission, tell them I want to store stuff there. You know what I would tell you guys? To stick it, because you set a precedent by allowing him for 20 years to go ahead and do it. You have a precedent. If I decide that I want to put something there, I'm going to do it. If he can collect money, and I can collect money, extra income, without paying anything else, that's fine. So that's all I'm just telling you. Okay, I'm really tired of this.
Well, I will respond to you, Dennis. I'm tired of it myself.
Well,
And we're doing everything we can do. Sean, would you please explain what you've done in the past couple
well, I
of
already
days?
talked to Sean.
Well, I think our board needs
I
to.
wanna hear it, I wanna hear it.
Let me just explain, because you
Someone
and
else is talking.
I've had some great dialogue. I've kept you very informed as far as what, I spent 2 weeks doing nothing but put all my other work aside to follow up on your complaint. And we did so very diligently, and you and I discussed that. I have followed up on it. Lieutenant Schneider and I did a drop-in inspection today. And I know you sent an email today saying that he came in with a truck.
Well, it was another, not his truck, it was another
truck.
company's
So let me finish. We no sooner got back and I got your email. There was absolutely no evidence of any wrongdoing at both properties there today. We pulled up, no tow trucks, no work going on. I have followed up, and I have been straightforward with you. I have not found him in any violation of any illegal doings. If I do, I'm going to follow up on it just like we did with the last one, the SA Road one. We followed up on that. We did a surprise pop in today, absolutely clean. We're following up on it. I have not been able to justify your complaints with my follow-ups.
Well, then what do you telling me that I'm not telling the truth?
I'm not saying anything at all.
Then I will sign an affidavit stating that.
But what are you signing an affidavit against? We can't find him in violation.
I don't need, all I need is an affidavit to say that what I seen is the truth, okay? That's what Paul Grove
So
wanted me to
I
do.
guess what we need to do is we'll give Paul a call, and if Dennis wants to talk with Paul, sign an affidavit saying that then we can go over there and see what can be done based on what the court findings are.
In our visits, I've not found him outside. Everything that I see that he's going on, he's allowed by the court to have his truck there.
Yeah,
He has
I don't
one
have a
truck now.
problem with that.
He's allowed to work inside his garage. He's allowed to work within his work on vehicles in there.
Well-
I have no proof that he's making any profit off of this. There's no way to
Well, Mr.
verify
Hammond,
that.
isn't it a violation to run a business, as you said in one of your deposition at one time, that he's been running, and he even admitted that he's running an illegal repair shop? I think you
The
said
ordinance
that.
does allow for home occupation businesses. He keeps his truck supposedly in the garage, and he does his business in the garage. He's not having customers, we have no proof that I can't prove in any way that he's being
Well,
compensated
Okay.
for work.
I just seen his truck go, the one that he hauled in today, go right into his garage, not his pole barn, the garage. Then he left again and headed south on Clyde Road, and I'm sure, being that I'm here, he probably brought in something else.
And
All I'm
again,
saying is that he knows.
Okay, Dennis, we're gonna continue on this.
Okay.
I know you're gonna continue on it, so.
Well, I'm not letting this go
oh,
until he gets out.
And we're just gonna have to keep working on it. That's what we gotta do. We'll get a hold of Paul. I'll have him call you.
Yeah, because I did say I wasn't gonna sign an affidavit.
and you-
then
you
now the
have
last two
said
times I
multiple
said I
times.
would.
So,
That's all I need is sworn testimony that this is what I've seen. He doesn't have to have the stuff there. I seen it. And I will swear to
okay,
that.
well then
on the
we'll
Bible.
make that portion happen, and then we'll take it to whatever the next level we can take it to. And, we're not sitting on our thumbs.
No, I'm not saying you did, but it's
We're
like.
doing everything we can to
the
make this
district
thing work.
court- At my experience with district court, okay, through Paul Grove, okay, and the other times that he's been in violation, they give him a fine, you give him a fine, that's it. Circuit court, okay, has more, I might be wrong, but circuit court has a lot more pull than what the district court has, from what I know, okay? with
Yeah,
my
I don't have any
attorney.
legal background on that, but
Well, I'm just saying.
if we can get it there and that's what it takes to make this thing work, then.
Because I'm
we're gonna
tired
do it.
of living 30 years like this. You want it, I'll give you my house, you can live in it, and see what I gotta put up with during the summer.
Well, I appreciate I do appreciate that I don't appreciate that you have to go through this crap, but,
In this meeting between the attorney and Mr. Dennis and you, be at one spot besides a telephone call?
I have to stay out of this thing. I can't
Well, okay.
personally get into that. It needs to be the attorney
Well, he represents us, right?
represents us. So thank you. We'll move forward on it. We'll keep trying, Dennis.
Okay, all right.
Thank you. Ken Chapman, according to my wife, my address is 250 West Livingston Road, Michigan. I just wanted to thank the board and DDA for the opportunity this last weekend. The Harvey Lake training burn went on. We had over 40 firefighters. Is that it? 40 firefighters, 5 departments. We had 6 live fire training evolutions where we had people in different tasks. They went in, extinguished fires, come back out, set it, went in, extinguished fires. And then at the end of the culmination of the event, we had a living room set up in the kitchen. We had an observation site outside. Some of the guys, we don't see a ton of fire out here. So this opportunity gave them the experience of seeing what happens during a flashover, what happens during evolutions of fires. And it was just invaluable. I just want to thank you, especially thank DDA for all the assistance you guys provided in making this happen for us. Thank you so much.
Can I say one thing, Mr. Chapman?
Yes.
Okay, when my wife fell on July the 4th and broke her hip, I just wanna say that you guys responded really quick, and they took care of her and they got her to the hospital. The only thing is, quit making him work so damn hard. This one guy came, he was nothing but sweat. His whole shirt was wet.
Was he a skinny guy or a heavier set guy?
Heavier set guy.
Dave Kroponic, sweats walking.
And
Sorry, Dave.
he told me that you made him cut down trees somewhere on
Harvey
Pleasant
Lake.
Valley Road.
Harvey Lake.
Or,
That was where they were at, yeah.
whatever. So, you guys
All right.
came quick.
Well, thank you, Dennis. Also on that, this is like the culmination of, I don't know how many years of trying to clean up an eyesore. And it's been a really strange way to make it happen, but sometimes strange things happen like this, and we're able to. The gentleman whose father owned the property to the south has taken over his dad's property there. He lives out of town. He doesn't live in Highland, but he has offered to purchase that property, and we'll combine it with his property because he has young kids that he'd like to have, and he's going to eventually redo the house there, his house, his dad's house, and then move to that piece of property. So it's kind of a bonus all the way around. I mean, it's somebody who his family has owned that land next door to it for 100 years, and that's a testimony to somebody continuing on with life in Highland there, and I think it's a great asset, and that house will never be rebuilt, especially something that close to the road. And so finally we're on the road to a true cleanup, and he's agreed to clean up the rest of the stuff. I think pretty much it's cleaned up better than it ever was. But so the next step is the final demolition and removal of the foundation and what little is left. Thank you, firefighters.
The Leaning Tower of Highland, as Roscoe called it this morning.
Yeah, it's a shame because it was a historical building. Once again, it's one of those where you ask people, would you like to help preserve it, and you don't get people jumping on board because one, they can't see what's there. But you guys saw underneath that was the original beams and everything from the original house that was part of the town of Spring Mills. So it's a shame that it had to go up in smoke, but at least it did some valuable training came out of it. So thank you guys. So we got to get moving here on this one. Thanks for the presentation and everything. And any more public comment?
I just want to say something real quick. With Veterans Day being on Monday, I just want to thank Joe Salvia for his service to our community. Our veteran ceremony at Lakeland was supposed to be yesterday, but snow day, so it wasn't that bad. We missed a day, but we're going to do it next Tuesday. So if anybody wants to come out, the ceremony is like at 12:15 to 1:45. But Joe helped me organize that ceremony, and that's taken off and been a very good one. And of course, I'm proud to say that everybody else in the district is doing something now after we started that. So, but I want to thank you, Joe, for your service to our community, to our country. My dad was also in the National Guard from 1956 to 67 or something. So. You know, and my grandfather was National Guard too back in the day of the 30th. So, thank you.
Sunday was the 14th Detroit Veterans Day Parade, and I co-founded that 14 years ago. We continue to lead that parade. Huron Valley Ambulance lead the parade, so it's an honor for our community. So.
And did you luck out on the weather?
We lucked out on it. As one email said, we dodged the snow bullet. Thank you, Brian.
Oh, you're welcome, Joe.
Thank you, Joe. All right, no more public comment, and we'll move on to the township side of the process. So we've got two public hearings. We'll open the first public hearing at 7:45. And this is on the township budget. So if there's any public comment, or anybody like to say anything, now's your turn. No comments, then we'll close the public comment. 7:46. The next one is Community Development Block Grant Funds application. This is for the 2020 time period. And we need to open that public comment at 7:46. And any comment on that? No comments, so we'll move on. Public hearing closed. So, new business. First item is approval of the 2020 township budget.
So we provided a copy of a budget here at the table. The one that's in the board packet accidentally has amounts listed in there for the transportation fund, which will be inactive next year. And so the version that is printed at the table doesn't have any amounts listed for transportation funds, since we won't be running that organization in 2020.
And we changed the education to $6,000, page 2, that you asked about, Mary. So that's been upped from
That's the only
2,500.
change from the last one we got.
Yeah, so from 2,500, I think it was, to 6,000 is what you had recommended.
We had originally budgeted 4,000.
4,000?
Changed it to 6,000.
Okay, so,
Page 2.
Yep.
yeah, it's under legislative dues, ed, and travel on page 2, right in the middle.
And we removed the 471 fund because the library debt's paid off. So that's
Yeah.
completely out of the budget too.
So,
I move to approve the 2020 township budget as presented.
Support.
moved and supported. Any just further discussion? All right, vote please.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
No.
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
All right, next item is Resolution 19-30, 2020 General Appropriations Act. Questions on that? Judy, you're the one who usually speaks to this item here.
So the version that was
Tammy.
in the packet, Gary made some very slight changes to, so we have a printed copy of the revised. It just basically changed some of the whereases to, it is further resolved.
Basically, we're passing the rates that we're levying for the winter property taxes.
Okay.
And again, for this year, for general, we're not levying the maximum that we could levy. I didn't bring it with me what we could levy, but we've kept it at 0.6. 6 mils.
All right, can you entertain a motion to approve?
Move to approve Resolution 19-30, the 2020 General Appropriation Act.
Support.
Okay, vote please.
I vote yes.
Yes?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, the next item is Resolution 19-31, opt-out of provisions of Public Act 152 of 2011. This relates to the health care and the Public Act. I don't know if they require it or recommend that 20% of health care be paid for by employees. And the township has the opportunity to opt out of that requirement. Is there anything beyond that statement that you need to?
That's it.
So some of the employees do pay based on the new, how new they are. And employees who have been here for a number of years fall into a different category, so they don't pay the 20%.
I would move to approve Resolution 19-31 to opt out of the provisions of Public Act 152 of 2011.
Support.
Moved and supported, vote please.
Mr. Salvia?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, the next item, D, Resolution 19-32 to amend Oakland County Sheriff 2019-2021 contract. Matt, you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, what I'm requesting is, currently we just have 2 command officers supervising 6 deputies. And the sergeant's position, what I'm requesting here is to change the sergeant's position from a patrol sergeant to a detective sergeant. That doesn't change his duties, he's still a patrol sergeant. But what that does do for a patrol supervisor, what it does do is it does give him a dedicated take-home car.
Speak up a little
It
bit.
does give him a dedicated take-home car. He is considered my deputy commander. You know, we do respond to emergency, high priority incidents, and it's, when responses, you know, needs to be quick, he needs a dedicated take-home car. So what it does is this increases our contract about 4,000, a little over 4,000 a year. That includes a marked patrol car with all the equipment, strictly for my sergeant. So that's what I'm requesting.
And this fits within your budget, so
It does.
it's a net plus for everybody, really.
Absolutely.
All right.
I move to pass resolution 19-32 to amend the Oakland County Sheriff 2019 to 2021 contract.
Support.
Moved and supported, vote please.
Mrs. McDonald?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
What the heck, I got this double up here.
It's one now.
32, 33, okay, resolution, item E, resolution 19-33. This is to approve the 2020 Community Development Block Grant application that we just had the public comment on.
I would move to approve Resolution 19-33 to approve the 2020 Community Development Block Grant application.
Support.
Moved and supported. Vote please.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
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 No.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, next item, resolution number 19-34, 2019 winter tax roll special assessments. This is 3 properties were involved in this, which our enforcement officer required lawn mowing to be done, or cleanup or blight. And so there's 3 properties, and so this is to place the assessment of the equivalent of $990 against those 3 properties.
I would move to approve Resolution 19-34 to approve the winter tax roll assessment.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported, vote please.
Mrs. Chenoweth?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, now, backside. New item G, this is introduction, Charter Township of Highland Rental Certification Ordinance, ordinance number 469. Since Sean Bell has become our enforcement officer and as well our fire marshal, one of the things that's been kind of clear, and I have to kind of say Ray Palladori's been asking for this for years. There truly is a need for the health, safety, and welfare of the public who rent residential spaces, especially, to make sure that they have appropriate safety exits and access and audible devices for fire alarms and so on and so forth. And so, between Sean and Gary, our Dovry, our attorney, we've come up with an ordinance. I think that, I think you both feel this is a good idea and an adequate ordinance change. And I don't like a lot of ordinances myself, but you start to think about it, and people who don't own their own places don't always have control over what they're living in. You know, and we want to make sure that Highland isn't allowing people to live in unsafe or squalor or whatever when it comes to renting property. So it puts the impetus on people that are doing it for money to be responsible to the people that they're taking that money from, to supply them with a safe place to live. There's a lot to it, and but I think that, you know, it's been vetted. Gary, you've been through it. In fact, I think this was as much. Waterford already has a program like this, an ordinance like this.
If I can address the board.
Sure.
What was initially sent to me was an ordinance that had been adopted by White Lake Township. I looked at that very cursorily. When I saw the subject matter, I brought to Sean and Ken's attention that Waterford had an ordinance that I had actually worked on twice, in 2017 and then in 2018, both times in response to the state legislature changing the state housing law, which provides the authority for these kinds of ordinances. So I was way more comfortable saying, here's Waterford's ordinance. I was good with it then for them. I'm good with it for Highland now. And the consensus was to go that route. So it was a quicker way to put something before you than to try to work with an ordinance that I did not draft and would have had to go through the whole process. It is long. Much of that length is prompted by the procedures that are called for by the state housing law if you have these kinds of ordinances, in terms of inspections, making sure that tenants' rights are respected for inspections. And the other part of the length is to try to build right into the ordinance the guidance that the folks administering the ordinance need. If they follow what it says, then they shouldn't run afoul of someone saying you violated our rights or the applicable state law. So, comfortable with it. My understanding is it's worked well in Waterford. Of course, Waterford's a much larger community, but that's what I can tell you about it.
Yes?
Sean's put a lot of work to adapt the Waterford process into Highland. Again, we're nowhere near Waterford and stuff, but the key thing was we just wanted to, like you said earlier, provide the safest environment for all of our residents. This isn't a ordinance we're trying to enforce people. It's just life safety is our job. Just making sure we do it the best way.
If I could just add, through this process over the last year that we've been working on, I know one of the projects when I came to Highland Township that I felt very strong on, and Ken agreed with me. I've looked at dozens of communities that do it and read their ordinances. A couple of them I really liked. The one that Gary brought to us, I thought was very thorough, very complete, very explained, as he said, explained it very well, gives some teeth to it. I really, once I read that one, I really liked it. We've tweaked it a little bit to fit us better. But if I could just say, one of the importance I find, I keep trying to bring across this, is we just had a house fire over the summer on Hickory Ridge with 8 children in the home, not one working smoke detector. So I think that's one of the main reasons behind this. It's not only life safety or fire safety, we're looking at providing them clean, safe, affordable homes. You know, I find a lot of these homes on my ordinance travels, I find them through blight complaints. We've got a resident on one side with a beautiful, well-maintained home, another resident on the other side with a beautiful, maintained home, and a rental property in the middle that nobody's taking care of. That's not fair to those residents. And if we can bring these homes up to better standards, it brings property values up, makes just a nice, safer, better looking community.
Is this gonna be like our other ordinances where it would be complaint driven then, or is this
No.
something that when somebody's renting a house, they have to register
Yes.
and you have to,
Absolutely.
on all rentals in Highland?
Mhm.
Is that gonna be difficult to regulate that and
Nope,
get
it's
everyone to
just-
comply?
We're tweaking our system. We have a system in place in mind. Am I jumping on you, Ken? No. Okay. No,
you did all the
we
work.
have a
You
process
talked
in
about
mind, and I know I've said this a few times to many people. I own a rental property. I'm very familiar with the rental inspection program. I believe it in 100%. I don't mind paying the fee. And there's a process. And what we've looked at here in the township is by taking the non-homesteaded properties with trash collection. If they have trash collection, if it's a vacation, we're going to notify them and let them send them a copy of a letter that we have drafted already. Notify them that we're going to implement this rental inspection program. They need to register their property with us. Then they will register it, and then we will notify them and send them a letter saying we need to schedule an inspection. Therefore, they'll call, we'll set up a time, make an appointment to go out and inspect it. They get one inspection for the cost. Well, actually, they get two. They get the initial inspection. If everything comes back fine, they get the rental certificate. If we find violations or things that need to be repaired, to bring back that big ridge fire with the 8 children and those smoke detectors, when I walked to that house, I about fell over. Wire, light fixtures hanging down with open wires, extension cords running all through it. That home should have been condemned. It was that bad. Nobody should have been living in that. And those are things as we're going to be looking for electrical, plumbing issues. Does it have adequate plumbing? Does it have adequate heating? There's, in the property maintenance code, a home has to be maintained at a certain temperature. They have to have the ability to maintain a certain temperature in a home. So those are things that we're going to be looking at, not just fire and life safety, but just general safety issues. Quality of living. Are we going to be able to, bring them all up to be castles? No. But we're looking to provide some protection, again, to provide clean, safe, affordable homes for these people to live in. That's the intention behind it. So once they bring their homes up to speed, or up to, they correct all the items, then they'll be issued a certificate. And we've set out some guidelines that we're putting into the ordinance of they have X amount of time to do this. And we'll work with people. And I like, as Gary said about the fair housing laws, is they have the right to refuse, and there's a procedure in place in that ordinance on how to deal with that. So that's kind of the process that we're looking at and trying to put together.
Question, so will that prevent somebody from moving in until the rental is?
If they're existing, they're allowed to maintain until we inspect. If they are, if they're vacant, if it's current rental property, it becomes vacant, it needs to be inspected before it's occupied.
What about the ones that have current occupants?
Then we will schedule inspections, and we will inspect them with the current, we'll make arrangements to either the property owner or a property representative like a management company, or the tenant themselves will can allow us to go in and do the inspection. So if it's currently occupied, they can continue to occupy, and they'll let us do the inspection. But if it's vacant, they will not be able to re-rent until it's been inspected.
Gary, you had
Just very briefly, we know the steps to getting an ordinance on the books. You introduce it, you adopt it. This ordinance has one final step in it that's important to bring to your attention. In the definitions section, you'll see a definition of housing and building codes, and that catches everything, and it includes the applicable provisions from the state law. A couple years back, you adopted a resolution because you're now required to enforce the state housing law with respect to multiple housing. But it calls for the inspections to be done under inspection guidelines. At some point, those need to be developed and brought to you for approval by way of a resolution. The contemplation there is you condense down all these different codes that if you stacked them all together would be yay high. The inspection guidelines have to be based on those codes, but it's going to be like a punch list. Here are the things that the rental and certification inspections are going to be looking at and focusing on. So you'll see it a third time tonight for introduction if you choose to do that, and meeting in the future to adopt it, and maybe at that meeting or a following meeting, actual proposed inspection guidelines put together for your consideration.
Do we know approximately how many rental homes there are in Highland?
Approximately 300, up to 300.
Oh.
There's more than what I think that anybody originally believed. But again, as I do my ordinance travels, I come across them all the time. And a lot of them are my ordinance complaints, neighbors complaining against them. But one of the other things too that I forgot to mention on there is, Gary just mentioned one on the punch list, is one of the requirements is a furnace inspection, to where they have to have 0 parts per million on their carbon dioxide. So that is a requirement as well, and it has to be done by a certified, licensed mechanical furnace heating and cooling company.
Yeah.
Yes.
What about apartments? Do they fall into that same, or is
Yes,
that separate?
they do as well.
Okay.
They do as well. Most apartments, it depends on the units. I've seen everything from boilers, to independent units in each one. Yes, we do have, they're covered under them as well.
What about the HUD, senior living?
That's covered under the state. We don't have jurisdiction over them.
What about mobile homes?
That was brought up today, and that's something that I think we're gonna have to look into.
Because there's a lot of rentals in the mobile home parks
But
too.
mobile homes are, that came up today, and we're gonna have to look into that, because mobile homes are kind of covered under the state a little bit too. So I don't know. That's something that it just came up today, and we're gonna have to look into. But it was a great question when it came up today. I was like, I don't know.
Because if you're doing it on the premise of safety of the renters,
Right.
it's important for them to be covered too.
Oh, absolutely, I agree with you. But I don't have that answer for you right now, but I agree with you. But I do know that mobile homes are a little bit different than a regular residential property, because I know there's some state guidelines over that. We found that out with one of the trailer parks when we were dealing with water issues, hydrant issues within the trailer park off at Hickory Ridge. We didn't really have the authority to go in and tell them that we're commandeering their hydrants, because it's a state regulated thing. So that's something that we'll probably have to have a little more conversation with Gary on and try to figure that one out.
This isn't going to cover,
Pardon?
this is not going to cover mobile homes. The definition of residential rental building says it's a building, and that's not by accident or just carelessness.
But it calls for dwelling units,
No, but
it's actually.
I can tell you from previously looking at it that the Mobile Home Commission Act, it preempts to some extent local authority in that regard. I can double check that, but.
I know that mobile homes are considered personal property,
Personal
not
property,
real
not
estate.
real.
So they're governed by a whole different set of rules there.
Pardon?
Oh, mobile homes are considered personal property, not real estate, so they have a whole different set of
Well,
rules.
yeah, but they're still being rented out as homes.
Yeah.
I'm not,
We may have to modify that to add those things.
I'm not saying that we can't do anything about them, but
It's a
if
different,
it makes
it's
a
a different
difference to you
animal.
on introducing this tonight or not, don't do it because you think this is gonna cover mobile homes. I don't think it's going to.
We can adopt.
Between now and
Well,
then, consider it for
we're better to get a start
I would say
than
this is a start,
than
yeah.
to do nothing and have something happen and then feel.
One, I
I
will
live
make
with
a
the guilt
point here,
from
because I
it,
keep
so.
getting interrupted. I mean, the interesting thing about 7101 is reduce the causes of blight. I mean, not only the causes, but of blight, period. We need to make sure that these people that rent these homes maintain the outward appearance. And if they're not being done by the tenant, then the owner of the property's gotta get that taken care
Well,
of.
the owner of the property is gonna ultimately be responsible.
Yeah, so, cause that's a big, bad factor.
And a lot of that is covered under our property maintenance
Okay,
code.
thank you. Okay,
Okay,
call for the vote.
Put a motion.
this is an introduction, so, I guess I don't know why, I never know what to do in an
Do we
introduction.
need to move to
Move
introduce?
to introduce it.
Okay, so, I'll make the motion to introduce the Charter Township of Highland Rental Certification Ordinance number 469.
Support?
We moved and supported. Vote please.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
No.
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, next item. I believe it was the last board meeting we had. Judy had brought up quotes for salary and benefits analysis. And so this is an opportunity to review these quotes I think there was information in the package on each one of the companies that are listed here.
So what I added was where, the company, the top, looks like 3 in the packet, I thought I did the top 4, but, the top 3, companies and where they're from, when they can start the project and how long it would take them. So, and then of course the tasks are included on the top. They all include, personal interviews with each one of the employees to pare down their job descriptions and as well as a final report. And they can do a public report to the board if we would like. So I guess the question is, did you want to move forward on it or talk about it a little more? Looking for direction.
I'd ask, why do you feel the need for this to be done?
Because every year when we go through the budget process, it's questioned. I mean, we always look at, are the salaries fair? Are they comparable? You know, what are we just shooting in the dark? What's the process? And I guess this would validate that we're on the right track, that our employees are being fairly compensated. I think it might do a little bit for morale for the employees to know that we care enough to make sure that they're fairly compensated. And one of the biggest things to any economic projection that I go to is you're gonna have a shortage of employees. If you don't, that's just the way of the world right now, is you're gonna have a hard time finding qualified people to do the jobs that you want and retaining them. So I think anything that we can do to promote that fairness is a good avenue. And we haven't done this in eons. We don't really have a process anymore. We don't have any levels set up. We don't have like a 4-year tier. It's just kind of, we're giving everybody the same across the board percentage every year. And every once in a while we adjust somebody because we think that they might be out of whack, but that's kind of our opinion or a department head opinion or.
Because the last time we did this, it turned into be kind of a farce.
Was that?
I don't know if you were here when we did that last time.
I don't remember it. I've been around since 2001, so.
What was the farce?
Because all of the employees overinflated what they did, you know, and so the report that came back didn't really match what was going on in the building. You know, if you're gonna do that, you need some oversight from the department heads. You know, is this really what goes on or not?
Sure. That's a fair statement, and that's a good thing to look out for.
I kind of think it's a good idea to. Oh, you don't like this idea?
Well, it wasn't last time, that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
I mean, we've talked about it several times, and I've
Right.
questioned too about salaries compared to others, and I don't know how to compare it. And the one company that's only gonna charge 8 to 9, and the fact that they did it for, is that the one they did it for Milford?
They did it for
too?
Milford.
And, you know, I kinda think that we're very similar, and if they're
Yep.
familiar with that, maybe that'll help, that, I just think it's not a huge amount of money so that we could have something to start from, or just a base for people to make comparisons.
Well, it might give us a renewed standard that maybe we don't have from a third party, that,
Right.
and this framework may last for several years before, if we have to consider it again.
I mean,
So a
it
base.
validates what we're doing in our budget every year. It encourages the employees and promotes to them that they are being fairly compensated. Where sometimes that's a question from their side too, as well as providing structure, so.
Yes, and I think it's hard too, is when we're voting on it. I mean, I don't know exactly what everybody does day in, day out. So
Exactly.
the check and balance would be a good thing.
And an objective viewpoint, I mean,
Right.
we're not objective.
And like Mary said, though, we really need to have the oversight.
Oversight.
It can't just be that
Agreed.
person saying, you know, it's gotta be the
Oh, yeah.
supervisor or person that heads over them, so.
That's good.
Well, I'll make a motion to recommend or make a motion that we contact for, whatever you wanna call it. Salary and benefit analysis with Ramberg, Stover and Associates, LLC from Birmingham for amount not to exceed $9,000.
Support that.
Okay, moved and supported. Vote please.
I vote yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
thanks for all the
Motion carries.
information, Judy.
You're welcome.
Thanks for your insight, Mary, too. So obviously nobody else on the board was around,
Yeah.
would not even know that, so that's good to know.
Comment.
So,
It really just turned
Yeah.
out to be not worth the money we paid for
Right.
it.
Well, let's cross our fingers. This one is more
Yeah,
realistic, and we'll
I
keep
hope
an
that-
eyeball on it.
The oversight's, that's the good
Yeah,
part, though. The oversight's
Do a
huge.
little better job than that. Not that, we don't need to talk about it anymore. I think it was good information though. So, move on to the last item. This is to award a bid for a generator at the activity center using CDBG funds.
It's crazy.
We got put out for quotes. We only got two, and of that, local company Synergy Electric, so is who we're recommending do the job, and it is, through CDBG, so they have to follow all of the guidelines for that, which means what do you call it? The wage is.
Yep, union wage.
Union wages, that type of thing. So there is one contingency on this, and that HUD has not given final approval of the CDBG funds. In other words, they haven't said exactly how much they're going to release, and we'll know that hopefully within a couple of weeks or less. But so if we, I guess I'll make the motion. I'll make the motion to.
Subject to?
Use Synergy Electric LLC to install the new generator for the activity center, and with contingency upon the HUD's final approval of the use of the CDBG funds.
Support.
Do you want to include the not to exceed price in your motion?
We can say not to exceed $30,000.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. A vote, please.
Mr. Salvia?
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, now
Are we gonna discuss about meeting dates?
No.
I know it's not on the agenda, but I know somebody talked about it, and
Right.
for next year. That's something we wanted to,
We kind of looked at it a little bit today. So if we went with the fourth Monday of the month, the only fourth Monday that wouldn't work is May, because that would be Memorial Day. So we would just slide that one up to the third Monday. It looks like it would work pretty good. The one thing we'd have to kind of think about is when we would do our budget workshops. So if the board meeting in November is on November 23rd, then we could have our budget workshops on the second Monday of both October and November, as opposed to September and October. So I think that would work.
Gary,
Are you talking about moving your meetings to Mondays?
Yeah.
is that Waterford?
Are you talking about moving them to the second and fourth Mondays?
Mostly the fourth. Is that bad?
You'll see a different person here on occasion. I don't go to all Waterford meetings, but they meet second and fourth Mondays.
Figures.
Of course they do.
But we haven't made.
That kills us, because almost all of our clients meet on Mondays. And so we
Really?
scramble to get attorneys, and we have a lot of municipal attorneys. We scramble to cover all the meetings on occasion, so I vote against.
You were elected.
Mondays. I know, but
Well, we were planning to put this on the agenda at next meeting.
Oh, okay.
To develop a calendar.
we'll work with it however it happens. I just did want to point that out.
Somebody always gets affected by anything you do, no matter what day it is. So we'll put it on the next agenda.
Okay, all right.
That way we can have all the dates laid out and the
Sounds
calendar
good.
laid out.
Okay, good.
Maybe what we can do is, you can get Carol to show up on there just for grins, let her
I
sit
don't
in.
know where she is in, but we'll work with it, I mean, we'll figure it out.
Well, I have confidence that, it'll work out, so, one way or another. Okay, item 11, I'm hoping we could do in one motion here,
Do you need three
to go into
motions?
closed session. Do we have to do three separate?
You should do separate motions. And then the first one, if you want to include the fire chief in that, you should indicate that in the motion.
I don't know if I want him there or not. He
You
took
don't have
up
to,
enough of our
I'm-
time already. He's not paying attention,
He's
he's playing a
paying
game on his.
So
on his-
if
Okay, I'll make the motion, we'll get this rolling here. I move that we go into a possible closed session to consider acquisition of property. Included in that, closed session would be the fire chief.
Support?
Okay, moved and supported, vote please.
Mrs. McDonald?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that, we go into closed session to discuss confidential attorney opinion letter on personnel issues, not including the fire chief.
Aren't we in closed session then?
What's that?
We're in closed session, you just made a motion to do that.
We just have to cover the topics.
you're not in closed session yet, you just
made a
moved to do that.
For the first one.
I think you should have 3 separate open session actions to have or not have a closed session on the 3 different items.
Okay.
Okay, so that was a motion. Support on that?
Support.
Okay, moved and supported, vote please.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, third motion, to go into closed session to discuss confidential township attorney opinion correspondence regarding appeals from Michigan Tax Tribunal decisions.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported, vote please.
All right, Mrs. Chenoweth?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Did you say yes? Sorry.
Yes.
All right, we'll take a short break and then go into closed session.
Did you vote yes on the last one?
Yes. Thank you. Okay, we're back in session.
Early this year.
I'd like to, make a motion
No coffee at the
to
meetings.
authorize the township attorney to pursue acquisition of property pursuant to discussion in our closed session.
Support. Judy can have it.
Say
Moved-
Brian can have.
Moved and supported, vote please.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
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 No.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Motion carries.
okay. Meeting adjourned.
Are we to a
Already?